Good boy, Tucker.
Welcome, everybody.
Welcome.
Hey.
Welcome.
Work smarter where you want.
Consistency is key.
And remember, if it's not in Redtail, it never happened.
This is learning at its most fun.
Hello, everyone. This is Haley with Redtail. I'm one of the trainers here, otherwise known as the Empress of Efficiency. And today we're going to be talking about segmenting your client data and just really organizing. I know organizing isn't really the most flashy or popular topic. Personally, it's my favorite topic. I love organizing anything from a kitchen cabinet to a database, and I'm really excited to share with you some tips and tricks on segmenting and organizing your client data in Redtail today. All right, so let's jump on in talking about what information in Redtail is most important to prioritize when it comes to your client data. And really, it's your contact data. So in Redtail, the biggest difference between a CRM and a Rolodex is that in your CRM or in Redtail, every entity has its own contact record. And I'm being vague on purpose there. The reason I'm being vague is that it's not only your clients who get a card within your Rolodex, as it used to be, where you'd have one card for your client, and then you'd have their spouse's name, their 3 children, the name of their employer, the name of their trust, and the name of their attorney, all on that single card. Instead, in the database, that would be a couple different contact records, one for the active client, one for the spouse of the client, one for each of the children, one for the attorney, one for the business they work for, and then one for the trust that they own as well. So now that we have so many more contact records, or an exponential amount of contacts as compared to our compared to our Rolodex, we have to organize those people or those entities. And we're going to organize them using the status. The status is like your relationship status with that person. Really, it's like your business's relationship status with that person or entity. And keep in mind, this could be your business's relationship with a center of influence, maybe an attorney, or maybe the attorney's company or the estate planning service. This could be with a school district. This could be with an association or a union or a community organization even. So the status is going to vary based on what type of contact they are. Are they an individual? And do we define them as a prospect or a client? Or are they a business, and do we define them as a vendor or a wholesaler? Or do you service businesses? And potentially the business could have a status of active client as well. Maybe you have a 401k planning option at your business, and you're going to have a 401k plan as a contact record. It's not a single 401k for one person, rather it's the plan at the employer level. So keep in mind what makes up your client base, and that's going to determine what your statuses are going to be. Next is your category, and the category is going to give you more information building on that status. So if the status is active client, your category is going to filter within that status and tell you what level of client they are. And I'll give more examples as we go through the CRM. But a couple other fields that I want to point out are really important on the contact level are source, servicing advisor, and writing advisor. The source is where that contact came from. How did you hear about them, or how did your business hear about that business or that individual or that prospect or whatever it is? Did you meet at an event? Was it a referral? Was it some kind of online marketing? Where did that person come from? And then you can begin to track and see what routes clients are coming to your business from, and maybe where your more qualified prospects are coming through. So if you utilize category and source together, you can start to filter deeper and say, oh, well, most of my AAA clients came from referrals from other clients, but most of my C clients or my D or E clients, those came from my marketing list. So maybe I'm not going to use that marketing list anymore. Or it could be in reverse. And then servicing and writing advisor within your office, who is the person who is supposed to answer the call and answer that client's questions? And that would be your servicing advisor. And then who is the person who's writing the business or managing the business or possibly collecting the commission? Think about what definitions you want to put on these fields within your office. And I've worked with so many offices on servicing and writing advisor. You can define those however you'd like. The spectrum is so vast on how that definition goes down. But at the end of the day, have some kind of rule or determination on what is a servicing versus a writing advisor in your office. And maybe it's the same person. Maybe it's the same name. Or potentially it's even the name of a team or a shared rep code. So there is a way to organize who the contacts belong to, and you're going to want to utilize those fields for greater reporting capabilities later. And that's what all of these fields are really going to help you with is reporting later and filtering later. And then I think it's worth mentioning as well those keywords and tag groups. Now, we've covered those in other Redtail training videos, so I'm not going to go too in depth on keywords and tag groups, but those are really searchable labels on the contact record. Keywords are going to be more historical and permanent, and tag groups are going to be more future and temporary. A keyword, for example, would be what services you offer or what services that prospect is interested in or what services that client subscribes to. And then a tag group would be what mailing list that person is on or what campaign you're going to run that that person's going to receive, or potentially what event that person is going to be interested or invited to. So these are going to set our foundation, and I'm going to show you how to add or edit any of the existing lists for status category, source, servicing, writing advisor, and keyword within Redtail. So let's go on over to our Redtail CRM, and you're going to go to the top right-hand corner where your name is, and then manage your account. After we've gotten to manage your account, we're going to scroll down under admins only. If you are not an admin in your database, you will not see this option. But that's okay. Not everyone has to be an admin. It might be determined or controlled by someone else in your office. So that's okay. Go ahead and just ask someone else in your office to add to these lists for you, or maybe you can have a meeting if you're kind of a larger organization about what should be added or removed from your lists. So we're going to go to admins only and then manage database lists. And this page is a list on the right hand side of all of the lists within the database that you can add to or edit. And a recent update also included account tax qualified types and account asset types on this list. So now those fields can be added to or edited on the contact account level as well. But today we're focusing on the contact level and statuses, categories, sources, servicing advisors, writing advisors, and keywords, which is right up here. So that's the majority of these lists under contacts that we're talking about. And these are all CRM fields, contact relationship management fields. You wouldn't typically find many of these fields in your Rolodex, but that's what's going to make these contacts reportable, searchable, filterable, all of that dynamic level reporting that you're looking to accomplish with your contacts. So with statuses, for example, let's show you some example statuses. Think of the status as your client lifecycle. So contacts are usually a lead first, then they become a prospect, then they become an active client. And then they only leave one of two ways. They go inactive or they pass away. They're both ways of leaving, but they're very different ways of leaving. So we may have different processes in place. We may have drip campaigns for our inactive clients, but we don't want to send drip campaigns in the other scenario. And then we have other statuses for the other important contacts in our clients' lives. So that's going to be your businesses, your your dependents, your maybe personal contacts, and your spouses of clients or potentially vendors as well. You want to keep your status list of maybe 12 to 15 at the most. You don't really want to have too many statuses because these are supposed to be mutually exclusive. So what does that mean? That means that a contact can only have one at a time. They are only in one status with my business at a time. It's almost like your relationship status, right, on Facebook or something like that. If you're married and you're single, you're probably doing something wrong, right? Same idea here. You want to keep your statuses mutually exclusive. They are either a prospect or a client. And I get this question all the time. Well, Haley, what if they are a prospect for my tax services, but they are an active client for my advisory services? What then? Well, then they're going to be an active client because the most important thing that we need to know about this person is, do we currently serve them in any capacity? And if the answer to that is yes, then they're going to be an active client right off the bat. But how do we then prospect to them and advertise within our active client base to those who don't have our tax services? And that's where keyword is going to come into play. So a keyword on the contact record will indicate if they are a tax client. If they do not have the keyword for tax client or retirement client, or insert any of these other keywords, then they can be on a mailing list or a campaign or a correspondence that advertises those other services to them. The keyword being on their contact record means that they do have that service with us. The keyword not being there is also searchable, and that means that I can go ahead and advertise to them in that capacity. So let's go back over to our slide for a second, and let's just look at a really clear visual of the relationship between status and category. Your statuses are on top of the lines here. So your statuses are lead, prospect, and then client. And this is a clear flow through our client lifecycle. So maybe when we get a referral, we input them into the system as having a status of lead and a category of warm. And then when they schedule a meeting with us, they are changed to a status of prospect and a category of hot. It indicates that something is happening. We are moving forward. This is very exciting. And then everyone in our office can see that there's movement here, and they may potentially become a client. Then we're going to go to prospect pending. Maybe when they have said they want to come on board as a client, but the paperwork is not quite signed just yet. Then we would have a category of pending. And then it happens, they sign, they're officially a client. We're going to rank them within our client status with a category of A, AA, or AAA. And for our example here, Redtail's categories each mean something as well. A means they have our firm's level of assets, our minimum level of assets to become a client of rollover advisory services. A AA client means they've met our level of assets, and they also have a great attitude. We love working with them. And then our third client, or our AAA, is they've met our level of assets, they've got a great attitude, we love working with them, And then they've also advocated for us in some way. They've referred one or more quality clients to us, and they gain that third A. And you can switch around the A's however you would like, or add your own definition for the categories. But the whole point that I'm making in this webinar is to have a point, to have some kind of direction or instruction behind those categories. This is another question I get all the time. Well, Haley, I have an advisor who just tells me to put them as a B client, and I don't know why. Well, when you have definitions for your advisors, definitions for your categories that kind of make sense to everybody in the office, and then sometimes a client is just put into a different category for no reason, feel free to add to your category definition because advisor Malcolm says so. And then it's still meeting your reason for why that contact is in that category. Perfectly reasonable to have that instruction on when to use that category. And then let's look at some of the other options here. We don't really like to talk about these options, of course, but when a lead does maybe what they don't pan out, then we change their category to cold. We're not going to just delete them from Redtail because they may come back in contact with us in the future, or we may get their name again from a future marketing list. We want to maintain any interaction we've had with that person in our contact relationship management system. And the same goes for lead lost. We're not going to delete them just yet. We're just going to move them to lead lost. And potentially lead cold is on a drip campaign, but lead lost may be asked not to be contacted again. So they're not on a drip campaign. Each of these status and category combinations has a purpose behind it. So now that we've looked at this kind of flow chart, let's go to a contact record and see what it looks like in the system. So remember, under your name, manage your account, manage database list is this list page where you can add to or edit any of the statuses that are currently available. Dependent is one option. I'm going to go ahead and edit that one to child of client because it's a little bit more clear. And that way, all of my contacts who have been labeled as dependent are now going to say child of client, and that's what's going to be viewable to everyone in my office. So we can all be on the same page on how to define any of these statuses. There is one system type here, and that's not specified. That one cannot be edited or deleted. And the definition for that would be that contacts that don't have a defined status yet. So maybe we don't know who they are. We don't know how they got in our system. It's kind of a low priority to go through your not specifieds because as your database gets larger, you're always going to have a percentage of contacts that you don't really know where they came from. And that's okay. We're never looking for a perfect CRM. You're not going to have a perfect CRM. I've been in the business for a while now, and I have not seen a perfect CRM just yet. And I don't expect to. Data is always changing. There's a rate of data decay that is currently always happening as client information changes anyway. But you do want to keep your not specifieds to a small percentage if possible. So now that we know what our statuses should be and what categories we want to start to see, there is a really cool page in Redtail that will give you an overview of your database. And that's under the Today page and the Contacts tab at the very top. So I love this. It's the most colorful page in Redtail. It's got all the fun rainbow colors to it. And it's going to show you the makeup of your data. So you've got a certain number of contacts in your database, and what percentage of those are your active clients? What percentage are prospects? It is not uncommon to have far more prospects in your database than active clients. Even though it's your client relationship management system, it really is more than that. It's a contact relationship management system. And your business has relationships with prospects as much as clients. because we want to foster those prospect relationships into client relationships and potentially leads into prospects as well. And if you're not really a fan of this kind of pie chart, you can switch the view over to more of a list view and get the actual numbers as well. And then let's go ahead and go to a contact record where we can see where the status and categories show. It's going to show right here on the search page. It may be clicking for the first time. Oh, that's why status and category are showing everywhere in Redtail. They're on the search page. They're on the contact record on the very front of their contact record. It shows almost every time their name shows. It's your relationship status with that person, so it's very important to be able to see that quickly. So if Dolly called me, I would type in her name, click enter, go to her contact record, and then I can see her status and category with us. Well, she's a AAA client, a very special client, and her status is active. All right, so here's a little bit of a sample of what we recommend making outside of your CRM. And what we recommend is making something called a style guide. A style guide is going to help you go into your database with more of a purpose and more of an ability to organize or keep everyone in your office on the same page when it comes to how to fill out those contact records. So what I mean by that is sometimes we need to step out of the database or the tool of the CRM and go into something like Word or PDF and define what the status of lead means to our business. In my example here, a lead is someone who I have had zero contact with. I've had no interactions with this person at all. And then the category of warm means that I just got a name and contact info. Cold means they have not responded in a certain period of time. Maybe for your office, that's 6 months. Another office might say 2 years. It just doesn't have a hard number to it, but you can define a number to it for your own business. And then lost means the contact actually said, please stop reaching out to me, or please stop emailing me, or they unsubscribed from your email campaign, or something like that. And then active clients, here's our definition: AUM under 100,000, AUM over 500,000, or maybe we have a personal client tier as well, where they don't really fall into our general category structure, but they have their own service level. And then the spouse of the client, what category should the spouse of the client have? The answer is the same category as the head of the household. And the reason for that is so you can send spouses of AAA clients birthday cards, but maybe spouses of AA and single A clients get birthday emails instead. And you can start to segment out your correspondences based on the status and category combination. We do have sample style guides for you guys that'll be included in the follow-up to this webinar, and it'll be attached underneath this webinar where it's posted on our YouTube and help desk websites. So we do have a sample that you can use to get started to define your statuses, your categories, your keywords, servicing and writing advisor. Even though those are typically self-explanatory, you can still define them, sources, and all of that good information. And then here's where the data becomes powerful or actionable, and that's through example searches. So let's talk about some of these example searches, and then I'm going to go ahead and go in the system and show them to you as well. The reason we want to define our clients as clients is so we can pull up a list of just our clients. It really seems silly when you say it like that, but it's so important to have them labeled in some way that we can search on just clients and get a number of how many clients we have exactly. And then we can even filter within that status of client. We can even filter within that status of client to say, well, I only want birthdays for June or July or whatever month it is. Or I only want to filter to those that prefer to be emailed, or those that prefer wet signatures over digital signatures. Or I want to filter to everyone that became a client in the year 2020. Or I want to filter to everyone who's been a client since 2016. I want to filter to all my clients so I can send a mail merge or some type of paper mailing to them, or a broadcast email, some kind of bulk email to all of them. Or maybe I'm just going to pull up a list of my clients and dial and smile and do some kind of personal touch where I'm calling out everyone to check in, see how they're doing, see if there's anything I can help them with. So let's go into the system and let's run the search for the status is equal to clients. And the way that you're going to do that is go to contacts over on the left-hand side, advanced search at the top, and then your type of field is a contact level field. We're looking for something that we would find on the contact record. The field that we're looking for is status. The operand is going to take you back to like high school searches with your Boolean search terms. We're going to choose equal to because it's a drop-down list and your active client is the value that we're looking for. And then click run. So now we're going to pull up a list of 96 records. We do have other webinars on how to clean up information or how to change statuses or categories in bulk when maybe they are not showing the correct values. So I would refer you to other webinars to learn how to clean up that data in bulk. But once you have your status and category defined, now you can segment or filter within your status equal to active client and limit your search by clicking and look for only contacts that have a status of active client, but also a category equal to AAA. And also contacts that have a date of birth month equal to June. Let's click run and see if we have anybody that meets that. So we do. We have one contact who meets all of that criteria. We could also then filter by 5 or 7 more additional filters. Really, there's no limit on how far you can filter down in your client base. Or you can expand the search and you can say, in addition to contacts that have a status of active and a category of AAA and a birthday of June, let's also look for, by clicking or, contacts that have a status equal to spouse of client. And now we're pulling up anyone who has a status of spouse and a category of AAA and a birthday of June. Contact category or date of birth month equal to June. So maybe I'm running my June birthday list and I want to send it to any either active clients or spouses of clients that are in that AAA category. And let's run. And look, I did have someone else come up. So now I can select both of those people, run a birthday report so I can send a handwritten birthday card, or I can generate a mail merge of a pre-made birthday card in Word. Or I can print out their envelopes or labels. There's many, many options. I could even send them a birthday email from this list. But it's all filtering on that information that's input into the system. And because they have a status of active client or spouse of client, I know they have their birthday filled out, their tax ID number filled out, because your required fields or the fields that your office needs to maintain is going to be different for a client versus a spouse versus a child of a client. Other searches are going to include status is equal to deceased or inactive. Maybe you want to see how many clients have been lost over a certain year or a certain time frame. There is a client termination date field on the contact record, and there is a date of death field on the contact record. And you could run a search of everyone who is deceased or inactive who has either a date of death or a client termination date within a certain year and see, well, how many clients did I lose last year by passing away, or how many did I lose from going inactive, and what categories were they? What was the total AUM from those losses? All of these statuses are going to be able to set the foundation for more detailed reporting and information gathering at a later time. Status as a child of client. I love to ask my clients, what do you call a contact that has a status of child of client, but they're over 18? Well, they're a prospect, right? Maybe it might not be as black and white as that or as simple as that, but maybe think about uh, prospecting to your children of clients or talking to your clients about their children in certain age ranges. If they're in school right now, then maybe we can offer some online services to meet with them at home, so we're not meeting in person, or we can offer, some of the resources that we have heard of from all of the resources for school age kids for learning, distance learning, and all of that. And then maybe for those contacts that have a status of prospect, we can search by added date, category, keywords, and etc. So let's run a search for our prospects. And you don't need to clear the search like I just did. You can just click on advanced search and it'll start the search over. And then we'll go to contact status equal to prospect. And we'll run that. So in our system, we have 112 prospects, but maybe I only want to see my fresh prospects, the brand new ones. So let's limit our search and say contact, and we're going to say contact created year equal to, and we're looking for the year 2020. So how many prospects have I actually gained this year? Well, really 2. It looks like I've got a duplication issue here. Or maybe how many prospects have I gained in 2019? And that's going to show me a little bit of a larger list. Created year, job title, gender, employer, date of birth, year, month, all of this good stuff is all searchable as long as it's filled out on the contact record. But even if it's not filled out on the contact record, you could say how many contacts with a status of prospect have a source that is empty. And now I'm looking for holes in my data or issues that I would need to remedy. And that way I can pull a more detailed report and say, well, these are all the sources that my prospects have come from. But before you pull a report of where your contacts have come from, maybe look for those that are missing that source first. And then the report that you run after the fact will be much more comprehensive. So we're really zooming in and looking at the data. On the Today page and then the Contacts tab at the top, we can see what's our overall database makeup. It's not meant for crazy reporting or digging in from that page. It's just going to show you at a bird's eye view what your database is made up of. And then you can also run reports by status, keyword, etc. There's a lot of reports available on the left-hand side of the of the CRM. Under reports in contact reports, and you can see, well, how many of my contacts have a referred by, how many have a servicing advisor, a source, a state, a status, a writing advisor, how many of them have no upcoming activities, or how many of them have not been contacted in a certain amount of time. Or contacts by keyword, how many tax clients do I have, how many retirement clients, and so on and so forth. And most of this can also be run through the search page, but the reports just give you a little bit of a more presentable PDF or an easier filter to work with. And then on the contact record, where do we see the status and category? Well, it's right there on the front of the contact record, where we can see first and foremost, what's my business's relationship with that person? And what's the category within that status? Are they a super high, awesome, ultimate, amazing client, or are they a C, a D, or maybe a tinfoil client? What's the range within your business? And then what's that contacts level at a glance? So your foundation in all of this is going to set you up for future success using workflows and automations. As a trainer at Redtail, We are talking to you clients all the time about your databases and how to enhance the client experience, how to make sure that your client reviews are getting the adequate preparation and follow-up, how to make sure that your notes are reflecting all the work that you put into your client relationships all the time. And the status in the category are the foundation upon which all of that follows. So when I get a call from an office that says they want to use workflows, one of the first things I say is, do you have your statuses and categories defined? Once we know what a status means, you can start to automate what workflows attach based on that status. Or what are the expectations for that person's experience with your office automatically through a workflow or an automation? Or what do you expect to see on the contact record just based on that status? So there's a lot you can do with all of this information. With that, I'll go ahead and end on a view of the contact record to go back to Dolly and the contact details over on the right hand side. And that's going to show me what her status and category is, her source referred by. I can count on her having certain information filled out just by having the status of active client.
Thanks so much for joining us today for this particular session. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to give us a call at 800-206-5030, option 3 for support, or just shoot us an email over to support@redtailtechnology.com. Thanks a lot and have a great day.